Hi, everybody. I'm Ms. Lee still. I'm going to go ahead and talk about solving a quadratic equation by factoring. So we're using the method of factoring to solve this equation. So the equation that we're given is 14x squared equals 12 plus 22x. First things first, we want an equation that is equal to 0. So the important thing is getting it equal to 0. And so we're going to move all of the terms to one side. So if we're moving all of the terms to one side, you also want to write it in standard form. In general, for me personally, I like my a to be positive, meaning that the coefficient of x squared stays positive. So instead of moving the x squared or 14x squared over to the right side, I'm going to move each of the terms over to the left side. So I know that we're moving more terms, but again, the goal is to keep that a value positive. So if we subtract the 12 and subtract the 22x to the other side, so minus 12 minus 12 minus 22x minus 22x. What we have is 0 equals, and then you have 14x squared minus 12 minus 22x. Okay, in general, when we want to factor, we want an expression that is in standard form. So that would mean that you want something of the looks of ax squared plus bx plus c. And so I'm just going to go ahead and switch the minus 22 and the negative 22x, or sorry, the minus 12 and the minus 22x. So we have 14x squared minus 22x minus 12 equals 0. So previously when we were factoring, we always factor out a greatest common factor. Because we are solving, we don't need to leave the greatest common factor in there. We can actually just divide out the greatest common factor. So do we see what a greatest common factor is in this case? It's 2. So we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. Remember, when you divide both sides by 2, you shouldn't be dividing only one term by 2. You need to distribute that division by 2 to each of the terms, so you're dividing each of these 3 terms by 2. So you have 14x squared divided by 2, that's 7x squared, minus 11x, minus 6 equals 0. Okay. And now we check, is this factorable? And so we're going to try factoring. And so we're going to make our big X. At the top, as usual, we have 7 times negative 6. That's negative 42. At the bottom, we have negative 11. So just to reiterate, the 7 came from the A. The 6 came from the, the negative 6 came from the C. And minus 11 is our B. Okay, so what two numbers add up to negative 11 and multiply to negative 42? So since negative 42 is negative, we know that we need a negative and a positive number in order to multiply to a negative number. And so we're going to look for numbers that are greater than negative 11. And if you think or try some numbers on your calculator, you'll find that the two numbers that multiply to negative 42 and add up to negative 11 are negative 14 and 3. Okay, and you can kind of check that real fast. 3 times 4 is 12. Carry the 1, that makes 42. We'll go ahead and divide by our a value. So we're dividing by 7. And again, that's our a value. That's yellow over there. So we'll go ahead and highlight that yellow. And then you should be simplifying this. And so 3/7 doesn't simplify, so we'll leave that. Negative 14 over 7 simplifies to negative 2. And so we write it in factored form. So we have minus 2, that's x minus 2, times, and then we bottoms up that 7, so then 7x plus 3 equals 0. So again, this is x minus 2 times 7x plus 3 equals 0. So when two things multiply by 0 or multiply to get 0, what does that mean about one of those things? So if you have two numbers, I told you that if I told you that two numbers multiplied to 0, what would you know about one of those numbers? And so I hope you've thought about that and you've guessed it, that when two numbers multiply to 0, one of them has to equal 0. So in this case, this is called the zero product property. meaning that only one of these have to be 0 in order to make this equation true. And so you can go ahead and set each one separately equal to 0. So you have x minus 2 equals 0 and 7x plus 3 equal to 0. I'm going to go ahead and write that direction there. So set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So we'll solve. So you add 2 to both sides, and so you get x equals 2. And then over here, you subtract 3 from both sides, so you have 7x equals minus 3. Divide both sides by 7, and you get x equals negative 3/7. So there you have it, your 2 solutions to this quadratic equation that we got from factoring. Happy day!